Hello. I just wanted to talk about my reading defeat of this month. It's Mrs. Dalloway, and this might be one of the best books I've read this year. I love Virginia Woolf, and yet I couldn't finish this book. And why is that? I There is two other books I haven't been able to finish in my life, so there is three defeats that I had. All of these have been taken again, and this I will read soon. But the reason why I had to stop in three cases is the same reason, and I thought that was very interesting. And I was wondering if someone else might have had the same experience. And is that like I have never had to stop a book personally because it was bad or anything like that. I mean, like I read Kant for fun, so I don't think I read Heidegger for fun, so I don't think there is like any book that's bad enough for me to not finish it. Generally, I am like I think that the ends of books are generally way too interesting for me to leave books halfway through. It has to be very insultingly bad for me to like not finish a book, and even then, like I genuinely think these are the only three books I haven't finished on my first try. Um, the first book I couldn't finish was last year when I was hiking and climbing, doing the Via Ferrata in Slovenia, and the book was the Iliad by Homer. Um, Later on, no, actually before that, uh, the winter of 2021, I was also hiking in Yorkshire, and I took with me Peregrine by J. A. Baker, which is a book that I was reading on that weather, on that place, on that area, about a bird that becomes much more than just a bird throughout the reading of that book. Another amazing book that I also finished afterwards, but that I couldn't finish on that trip. That I couldn't just keep reading, I just had to stop for a similar reason. You probably have started to see a tendency here. The third case is Mrs. Dalloway. I took Mrs. Dalloway with me to a sailing course and trying to get my day skipper license, and I took it, and basically I was gonna be a week out, and I took this and I took a few more books. I didn't read anything, just as before, like in the other cases. I just didn't read anything except the first half of this book. I didn't read any of the other books, that's what I meant, but I only read for the first half of this one, and I just couldn't continue, and it was not because I was not enjoying, right? As I was sailing, it was raining. I mean, I even got a bit sick, as you might be able to notice on my voice. But I just couldn't continue reading this book because I did not know what was happening, and this is exactly the same that happened to me on the other two cases. The Every individual page of this book was incredibly enjoyable. I could tell that I was reading a good book, and yet I just could not tell what was happening in it, and that's very frustrating. So when that happens, is when normally I just go back and start again. But I hate doing that. Like when I'm, like generally I reread every page when I'm reading a book that I consider difficult, and I don't consider this difficult. I don't think it's a difficult book, but when I'm reading like philosophy or something like that is harder to understand. I just reread the same page over and over and over. So I pretty much never close a book until I understand it. So rather than reading the book once and then reading the whole book again once, I just read maybe the same page two times and then the next page two times, and that's how I reread. Um, but with Mrs. Dalloway, I didn't do that. I was just like thinking I have to finish this book at least before I go back to shore. And I kept reading forward because it was like there is nothing here that I cannot understand. Why am I not being able to follow the plot? Yeah, the reason is the same as in the other two cases. I was out there. I was living my own adventure, um, and I think I have to start realizing that maybe I can take poetry books, or I don't know if anyone has any advice or personal approach to this. I mean, like tomorrow I'm going to Scotland for a hike, and I'm taking again two books with me, and we'll see whether or not I manage to read them. But the point is that like when I'm in the world, when I'm trapped in like my own endeavor, in my own arch, it's very hard for me to just like go into a book and get into someone else's. Um, And I think that's what happened. And I will see if this time when I go to Scotland I'm not able to read the books I'm taking, then I will know that that is it, and that I just have to give up the idea of doing like crazy challenges that involve me being out there, especially in nature, always in nature, and not being able and reading at the same time. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it doesn't happen very usually that I get defeated, and it's nice to have a record of it. Nevertheless, this is a book that I will not only read again, but that I'm sure I will enjoy once I manage to have the right conditions, the right environment for me to enjoy it. And I just have to accept that not every moment has to be a reading moment, and that if you are out there like climbing fucking Mont Blanc, you don't have to be also simultaneously like reading about anything. So yeah, and nevertheless, I would still recommend this book even having only read halfway and not having understood the plot, because I remember like I have underlined so much, and like the first half, the reflection, the way it was written is just amazing. It's just Virginia Woolf. I mean, like if I find any good review from anyone, I'll link it on the description. That's all.